let me quickly, thank you. Let me quickly run you through what our agenda is for today's event. So we're starting already. Then after the start, we'll have introduction of guest speaker. Then after the introduction, the guest speaker will have about an hour plus to speak to us. And then we have a question and answer session. And then we'll close. Okay, so let's get started. All right, so before we start, can you drop in the chat what your expectations are for today? So what are your expectations? I want to read from you. What do you hope to learn? Hope to change? Yes, like we were saying before the meeting started, that I'm really hoping to learn today, right? I came here with the mindset that I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to do better in 2025. Okay, so I want to read from you. What are your expectations today or this evening, as the case may be? Please type in. I want to read from you. What are your expectations? What do you hope to learn in today's webinar? Please type so that we have a more orderly room, right? So can you please type? Okay, says I want to learn new things. Amazing, amazing. Let's keep it coming. What are your expectations for today? I hope to learn and know where I fit in. That's amazing. That's Victor Bolanli. Keke Chinedu says, I want to learn new things. Victor Bolanli says, I want to learn and know where I fit in. That's amazing. Okay, so let's keep it coming. At least this expectation will also help our guests to, know how he's going to direct his speech, right? Okay, Josine, I'm not sure about the spelling or the pronunciation, so please pardon me if I don't pronounce your son properly. So Josine Kupas says that after 20 years in my job, I want to see how I can maybe still improve and not get stuck for another 20 years. That's very profound. Sunday Apas Ochai says, I want to gain knowledge that will help me land a high-paying job in 2025. Profound, profound. So profound. Well done, everyone. Thanks for sharing. Yes. And of course, it's always good to know how to make progress. I mean, like in life generally, progress should be natural, right? Even nature teaches progress. When you have been in a place for a while, you're supposed to move, progress. All right, so thank you all for sharing your expectations for tonight's webinar. Give me an honor of introducing our special guest. Okay, you probably have seen what we put up for him on our group. Okay, but yes, I'm still going to read to you. So Dr. Chris Abojei is the founder of PsychAid EAP with over a decade of experience in mental health treatment, research, advisory, and training. As a licensed clinical psychologist, certified employee assistant, professional wellness trainer, and international keynote speaker, he specializes in providing expertise in employee assistance. Can you hear me first off? Please confirm if you can hear me. So it won't be as though I'm talking to myself, please.
Can hear you.
All right, thank you, Chinedu. All right, so I was talking about introducing Dr. Chris Abojei. All right, so I'm going to start over again. Dr. Chris Abojei is the founder of PsychAid EAP with over a decade of experience in mental health treatment, research, advisory, and training. As a licensed clinical psychologist, certified employee assistant professional, wellness trainer, and international keynote speaker, he specializes in providing expertise in employee assistance, workplace wellness advisory, and mental health service implementation for private individuals, as well as governmental and non-governmental organizations. Throughout his career, Dr. Chris Abojei partnered with various organizations to enhance the productivity, wellness, and profitability of their employees and managers. His clients include industry leaders like Siemens Energy Nigeria, Lagos, Mind, Hugo Technologies, Critical Rescue International, Brookside Counseling Center, Chevron Nigeria Limited, Rodin Healthcare, Venus Healthcare, Reliance Family Clinic, Contera Group organizations, including the Nigerian Association of Clinical Psychologists, the Australian and New Zealand Mental Health Association, the Employee Assistance Program Association, and the International Society of Substance Use Professional, the Canadian Counseling and Psychotherapy Association, and the College of Psychologists of Ontario. All right, so with your favorite emoji, can you make welcome with me, Dr. Chris Abojei, for this transformational session we're going to have tonight? Please, let's keep the emoji coming. Yes, I love that heart. Well done. Let's keep it coming. Let's keep it coming. Well done, everyone. So, Dr. Chris, it's really, 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 really good to see you, right?
It's
After
a
a very,
pleasure.
very long time.
Yeah, it's been a
Over,
while, very long time actually.
yes, a very long time. Thank you.
How have you been doing? I believe you've been doing well.
I've been okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be here, and I think the topic for the conversation is quite interesting. Um, Especially because, I know that this is something that a lot of people struggle with, figuring out, getting clarity for the next steps in their careers, and sometimes feeling stuck. And in my role as an employee assistance professional and a clinical psychologist, sometimes I get people who sit in front of me and, you know, they experience, all sort of emotional distress because they just can't figure out what next steps to take. So we'll hope that we would have a good chat today, sharing from personal experience as well as just also learning as well. So I'm open to learning from everyone on the call, and also sharing my experience and yeah, and let's see how that goes.
Thank you. Yes,
So just let me know when you want me to go on or start.
all right. Give me a minute
Okay.
to share your slide.
Okay, so while we wait for the slides to come in, yeah, it would be nice if a few of us can just drop in the chat where we are joining in from, and maybe any other thing you would like me to know about yourself, right? Titi already read a profile of myself, so I assume you already know me, so yeah, so if there's anything you want to drop just so that we are able to connect. Okay, the slides are on, but you can still go ahead to just put in something in the chat and Yeah, let's take it up from there. So Titi, just give me, the signal when you want me to kickstart.
Yes, please, you can go on. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. And yes, I would be working with us today, just, discussing about strategic steps to gaining clarity in our careers and, of course, in flourishing. I wouldn't say that I have all the years of experience to, be speaking about this with people, but at least to a large extent, I've spent a little over a decade, navigating my career and, of course, helping other people navigate their career. And the good thing about being a therapist or a psychologist is that you get to learn from other people's experiences as well. I have dealt with, I have over 15,000 client hours. So that means that you're sitting down and you're speaking to thousands of people. Some of them will have, triple your experience in their careers. And of course, working with multinationals like the ones that I've worked with, you're sitting down in front of presidents of multinationals and you're, helping them navigate, difficult life experiences. Um, so on one end, it is the fact that I've spent years studying. But on the other hand, also, it's also that I have also had my own fair of experience climbing through the ladders. And I hope that I'm able to share that in today's conversation. The goal for us generally is to make sure that at the end of this call, you are able to build confidence and, of course, gain clarity. And I'll start with this quote. Now, I heard someone say this, maybe not exactly how it is on this slide, but I heard someone say something like this a few years ago. And I want us to reflect on this. And it says more can happen in 10 years than in 1 year, right? And if you think you have an idea of what this is trying to say, you can just go to the chart and put it in the chat, right? Just type something in the chat to tell me, and then I'll be looking at the chat to see what your perspectives are about this simple, but I think very profound quote. And so while you put that in the chat, I would explain why I'm starting with this quote. And the reason why I'm starting with this quote is because I realized that many times when people are speaking to me about gaining some clarity about life generally, sometimes these are mid-level, career personnel or sometimes even senior management. I realize that many of us are too hard on ourselves, and we underestimate the power of time, especially also for the younger people, those who just graduated, for example, those who are about to graduate and they're already thinking about the next steps, what is going to happen. And for those that live in climes that are experiencing a lot of economic hardship, like I always say, those that are going through Shege Pro Max, when they think about the statistics and what the statistics says about how there are no many jobs or all of that, they become scared and they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And so this quote for me spoke to me when I heard it, um, that many times we underestimate how much we can do in 10 years, how much we can do in 5 years. And we find out that we experience a lot of anxiety because we are predicting that things will not go the way we want it, right? We start out something, for example, and this also explains the root of imposter syndrome for a lot of people. We start out something, and we are not as we begin to compare ourselves to people who have been in the field for a long time, and we see that maybe what we're doing is not as as clinical or as good as what they have done. And then we judge ourselves negatively, right? Because we fail to recognize that maybe these people that we're comparing ourselves with took years to build these careers that they have. And as much as you want to get to those stage, it would require time, right? And we also need to understand that 2 days or 2 days is not the same thing as 2 weeks. Same way, 2 weeks is not the same thing as 1 month. So you might start out something and might not be so great at it. It's not something to be worried about, right? It's not something to quit for. What we need to recognize is practice would only make us better. So the more we do these things, the more we engage in the strategies, the more we learn, the better we become. I also always say this, that in life, there are no manuals. So even though I'm going to be giving you some steps and telling you, okay, you can do this, you can do that, I'm going to tell you for free that it's not a one size fits all for anyone. These are strategies that some of us have discovered, on our own journey, and we think it makes sense, but nobody says that you're going to follow the same blueprints, right? And so for me, I want to start with the message that on this journey to gaining clarity and to achieving and flourishing in our careers, we need to be able to show empathy to ourselves. We need to be able to be kind to ourselves. We need to be able to permit ourselves to grow. We need to permit ourselves to learn on the journey. We need to permit ourselves to be flexible on this journey, right? And I think that's the most important thing for me. It's knowing that it's going to take a lot. Um, Time will be required, effort will be required, but every step you take will take you towards your goal, right? And this is for those of us who have a goal. So I have Josine, I think. Your response is some people don't see things happen in a short time period, but often you see things still come full circle in 1 or 2 decades. I agree that some of the things that we do, and they would say things like Rome was not built in a day, or that little drops make an ocean. And that's what it really is that little drops make an ocean. So at the initial point, when you start to put in the effort, it might not look like anything, right? It might not look like anything, but just give it some time and you would see how things unfold. And so I'm expecting that today, just like many of us have said in the chat, that we're able to gain clarity on our journey, gain direction, understand the direction that we should go to. I'm also hoping that we're able to discover strategies to maximize the impacts. And of course, everyone wants to earn more, and of course, earn more as well in our various chosen careers. I'm also hoping that for those of us who are hoping to transition, we're able to do that effectively. And of course, if you're already on this call, then you are my audience. And so I wouldn't need to tell you what the characteristics of the audience should be. And so when I look at the next slide for me, uh, what I really, um, what I'm really hoping to achieve is to really talk about what career clarity is. What exactly is career clarity? And I think in simple terms, it's our ability to understand our strengths, our values, our interests, and our goals. That's what I think it is, right? It's simply how much do you understand of yourself in line with what you're trying to achieve. That's it. I think many times when people look at clarity, they are thinking more of, I want to know what to do, right? And that's fine, because we think if I can know what to do, then I'm fine. But I would shock you that sometimes you don't need to know what to do. Sometimes you don't need to see the next steps. You don't need to see the future. In fact, I don't think anyone sees the future. But mostly what you really want to do is to understand yourself. I think any form of clarity starts first from you understanding yourself. Any form of clarity. Any form of clarity starts first from you understanding yourself. You need to be able to understand yourself first to be able to give the best that you can give towards your career. And this is also one of the reasons why I just published a book right now. And the title of one of them, or two books actually, one of them is I'm Good Enough, right? And it's really addressing these issues with people struggling with not being good enough, because many times, because of the challenges we face along the journey in our careers and in our lives, we begin to think that there is something wrong with us or that we don't have the capacity to achieve what we've set out to achieve. But that's the biggest, it's an irrational statement. It's a lie. And I was trying to help people understand that when it comes to who you are and your potential, it is inherent, it is internal. Whether or not you have a six-figure paying job or you're still trying to land a job, it doesn't define who you are. Unfortunately, because the human brain doesn't work with reality, the human brain works with perception. So you could have what it takes, but if you don't think you have what it takes, that over time becomes your reality. And so for me, I think we need to understand that when we start to talk about career clarity, we're really talking about you getting first to understand yourself, understand your strengths, understand your values, understand your interests, and of course, aligning that with your goals, right? It's like saying, I want to have a clear vision of where I'm headed and why. But most importantly, I want to also understand the vehicle that will take me there. That is what I think this should be all about. And so why is it important to gain clarity, on your career journey? I think it's important because it reduces a lot of the anxiety that we face. By the way, anxiety is a response to perceived threats, right? So that means that whenever you think something bad could go wrong, what happens is you start to experience anxiety. And it's not designed to be a negative thing, by the way. Anxiety is designed to help you prepare for that threat. The unfortunate thing is that anxiety is different from fear, right? So with fear, the threat is physical. That means you can see it. It's something like a dog chasing you, for example. That is fear. The threat is physical. So when the threat is no longer there, you also know that the threat is not there. But with anxiety, the threat is perceived. So it's not necessarily physical. It might not necessarily be true. It might not necessarily be real, but you think something bad might happen. Your brain is not going to say to you, let's first find out if it's true or not. The moment you perceive it, your brain starts to prepare you for it because that's what it's designed for. It's designed for your survival. And so the moment we are not able to understand what our strengths are or who we are, what our potential is, and we are not able to connect that to our goals as well, we start to have this perception that there's a threat. There's a threat because it tells you you're not prepared enough for it. I like to always give the example of, and some of you might know the story. There's the Jewish records of a young boy called David, and the giant Goliath that he had to pull down with stones. Some of you know the story. But what many people don't focus on is that this story was about, it's a military story. It's a story about a certain military group where you had warriors within the military ranks that had fought different battles and had won different battles. One of them being the king then was Saul. Saul at some point, all those kind of Hollywood movies you watch where one person enters the enemy camps and destroys everybody. That guy did that kind of action movie. He went in with one person to an enemy's camp and destroyed the enemy's camp. So these are generals that had gotten results, right? But then suddenly, one man is standing in front of them, and you might say, Chris, it's not one man, it's a giant. Okay, yeah, we agree, it's a giant. A giant is standing in front of them, and everybody is scared. These are generals who had fought different battles and have won different battles. What do you think made the difference here? Then this young boy comes up. He has never fought in a war, but then says, you know what? I'm going to deal with this giant. The difference here is that while everybody were looking at the obstacle, right? And not being able to connect the obstacle to their own potential and their own ability, the young boy was able to do that. The young boy was able to say, you know what, I have fought, different animals, different threats. And if I could fight those threats, I can use the same strategy to fight this giant as well. The others could have done the same thing, but they didn't. And sometimes we are like these generals. We're standing in front of obstacles, but we fail to recognize the many other battles that we have faced. So if you're an early career person, for example, you have faced battles. Battles, for example, when you're trying to get admission into school. Battles, for example, when you were writing your first semester exam, or when you graduated and you had to be called up, for those of you who are Nigerians, and you had to be called up into the NYSC, or your first interview, job interview, all these things are different battles, and they showed or reflected a potential that you had to be able to achieve the results that you achieved. The difference is that when you then meet a new challenge, just like those generals, you might tend to forget the victories that you've had and the strategies that you used in achieving those, right? And so I'm hoping that by talking more about this conversation today, many of us will get to a point where we never forget our battles, positive or negative battles, because many of us want to forget the bad ones or the one we think are bad ones. But I always say that there is no bad battle. I think it was, I don't know who made this quote. I think it was probably Napoleon Bonaparte. I'm not sure, but he says something like about two bad generals are better than one good general, right? So you think these guys are bad, but they can always bring something to the war. No, I think one bad general, yes, is better than two good generals. And that's because the good generals, even though they are good, they would be confused on what strategies to go with, and it will slow them down on acting. The bad general, on the other hand, doesn't have anyone to talk to. So he's going to act fast, make his mistake, and continue again. And it probably will get a better results. But I'm also hoping that we're able to increase our confidence by having this conversation, especially confidence in making decisions and negotiating as well. And of course, being able to position ourselves to seize the opportunities that are in front of us. Um, so let's really look at what are the signs that you need to be on this call in the first place, right? So if you don't meet any of these signs, you can log off, right? But I think number one is that you're just starting out your career, or you're just starting out on a new journey, right, in your career. So if you meet this criteria, then you're in the right place. Or you feel stuck, or you feel indifferent about your current work or current positioning. You're uncertain about the next moves, or in some cases, you are hesitating due to not having the directions that you think you should have, right? If you meet any of this, then you should be on this call. And then the last one, which I didn't put here, is that you want to learn, right? So if you fit any of this, then remain on this call. And if you know anybody who fits any of this, then you might want to send them a message to join the call before we go so far. We believe that, again, this will provide opportunities for growth for everyone on this call, regardless of what position you find yourself in. I'm going to run straight into the steps. Now, permit me to say that I've tried to, when I was doing this presentation, I did it in a way whereby I'm looking at what is expected, what people will tell you should do. And then I will tell you what I have experienced, in my own career as well. So again, what would they tell you in terms of the steps to achieving career clarity? The first one, very important one, is you need to be able to, again, reflect, know yourself, right? You need to identify your strengths. You need to know your strengths. You need to know what you're passionate about. You need to know your core values. And you can use different, career assessment tools to do this, or maybe even get professional feedback. This is what they'll tell you, and this is sound information, right? Sound information. Before you start anything, you need to know what are my strengths, and all of that, right? And of course, to achieve this, you probably need to do a lot of research. Search about the field you want to get into. What strategies should I be using? Sometimes you probably want to read about people who have been in the field. What did they do? You want to know what the trends are. And then based on all of this information, you can then set your goal. You can have your short-term goal, medium-term goal, your long-term goal. Just create a roadmap for yourself that would allow you and will guide you. And this is sound information, right? And I will tell you that I used a lot of this information. Now, I would give an idea of, where I started from myself. I chose to study psychology, not because I even knew what it was. I didn't, the only thing I knew about psychology was that I was struggling as a teenager. And somehow I was reading about different careers, and I read the job of a psychologist was to help people who were struggling like myself, depressed, suicidal. And it made sense to me then. Oh, go and study these things so that you can help yourself. That is the only picture that I had. That was the only vision that I had. So when people say, oh, they had this 10-year vision, I did not have any 10-year vision. The only vision I had was go into school, study this so that you can help yourself, right? That's it. And that really informed what I did in school because most of what I was doing was self-therapy. And even though my grades were good, very good, it wasn't really my goal. But I think that because I was applying everything to myself, right, it became easy to understand what was said. So while people were struggling with psychology, and Titi would know that the psychology department at University of Ibadan doesn't have the best reputation in terms of students' performance and how they do, because most students are always complaining, they don't like the department. But for me, it came very easy. It came very easy because I had experiential knowledge of what I was learning. I was applying it to myself. And if you taking memory a trip down memory lane, I would remember that after class I would probably sit in one of the lounge. So we had the leather lounge and the wooden lounge, and what I'm doing is just studying people, just looking at people, understanding the social behavior and everything they're doing, which made it easy for me to apply when it came to the schoolwork because we did a lot of case studies. So they're giving you a case study, you've studied it. If you looked at my textbooks then, you would see age 5, this happened to me, this happened to someone that I knew. So it's constantly analyzing the concepts. So they were second nature to me and it was easy. Again, it was not about graduating and finding a job, or it was not about 10 years. The first time I thought about a career was in 300 level. And that was when I was learning something about child psychology. And I said to myself, oh, I think I want to be a child neuropsychologist, right? It made sense. Fast forward years later, I came back for my master's, um, did the master's, and I think it was then that it first dawned on me that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, right? And of course, when people will tell you that, oh, look at the areas you're good at, I was probably good at everything. My professors thought, oh, I was very close with some of the professors that thought, we want you to do industrial and organizational psychology because, you are very good at it. So why don't you do that? Um, so it was now me, I have to decide what do I want to do. The other thing I think I was good at was I was good at teaching. So I thought lecturing would be a good idea, just, lecture, become a professor one day. But while trying to navigate that, I discovered that there was something called politics in the university. And it was very irritating to me, right? So I think it was that point that I said to myself, I don't think I want to do this. I don't think I want to lecture because this is irritating. But then what could I do? The only thing I could do was to then say to myself, okay, you spent the last couple of years, helping yourself through your own mental health struggles. Why don't you help other people who have been going through the same struggles, right? And this is how my own career, steps were being formed. There was no blueprint. There was nothing that said, I didn't sit down anywhere and say, oh, in the next 10 years, this is just going to be, nothing like that. I was making it up as I was going. And so I said, okay, you know what? Why don't you try to help other people? But then it dawned on me that in those days, we didn't really have a flourishing mental health practice like the ones we have now. People were not really talking about mental health. So where are you going to get your clients? Um, Again, now I need to think about what do I do? And I remember the first things that came to my mind was to start to reach out to organizations, religious organizations to say, can I come and talk to you guys about mental health? Again, I love to teach. I love to talk about mental health. And some of them would say, nope, we don't have that time. Some of them would say, we give you just 10 minutes. And the way they'll be talking, they would look as if they are paying me for it. They were not paying. I was doing them a favor. But they'll say, 10 minutes, just talk 10 minutes and leave. But that's what I started doing. I remember then I would, iron my suits, prepare my presentations, practice the presentations, just so that I'm able to hit the 10 minutes. Then I go and deliver the presentations. But after that, somebody's reaching out to me and say, "Oh, I never knew this is what I was going through. Can I see you?" And they thought they paid me. So because I usually would try to dress very well. So they think that for this guy to come on this stage, they must have paid him some big money. I was doing these things for free. I had contacts from Lagos State, Ministry of Health who reach out to me because they attended the program and they say, "Oh, can you come and train our team?" And we don't have so much. Oh. I'm like, "Hey, don't worry, I'll work with your budget." Because they thought this guy must be earning so much, and I was not earning anything. But this is basically what the career path looked like for me. There was no blueprint, and that's what I'm trying to say here. So while they would say start out by researching, knowing yourself, and those things are brilliant. But it's also okay if you don't have such blueprints. And that's what I want to say. You can make up as you go on the journey. And hopefully, as I go on, I will probably give you an idea of what my own journey had looked like as well, or looks like as well. And maybe we can learn from that, right? So if you're on this call and you're thinking, I don't have anything I'm passionate about, or I don't have anything that is my goal or my purpose, it is fine, right? Some people like us didn't have all of that. Maybe I was passionate about psychology, maybe that, but I didn't really have a picture of what a career would look like. Many people who were psychologists were either in lecturing. So that's the only thing that I had as a picture. So it's okay. That's what I'm trying to say. It's okay not to have all of that passion and all of that, because I see a lot of young people sitting in front of me and they're saying they don't know what their purpose is. They don't know what they're passionate about. It's okay. It's fine, right? What I think is we need to be able to just take steps, just do something. I think the only rule to advancing your career is making sure that you are not seated for so long. That is the only rule that I think. And I might be wrong because, like I said, there's no manual. But I think that when I look at my own career, the only thing I think I did was I wasn't sitting. I kept on thinking, what's the next thing to do? What do I do next? Who should I reach out to? And that's basically it. Didn't have a full picture, right? But I just kept on trying to do something. And that's what I would say. So if you're on this call, maybe you're also following the same rules. You're trying to do something, and that's cool, right? Um, because most of the growth that we experience would come from you just exploring, right? And what you find out is that as you explore, your passion would grow organically. Your passion will grow naturally, right? Somebody shared something with me a few years ago, and it was a story about a person who went to the restaurant, and the person ordered some food. So there were three guys and a lady, I think. When the waiter was bringing the food, the waiter slipped and fell, and the first person just went and picked up the waiter and tried to console the waiter. "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine." The second person just went and started finding out, "How much does this cost? I'll pay for it." And the third person went on to say, "You know what? I'll help you clean up," right? These three people naturally picked different roles that they wanted to fulfill in that situation without thinking about it. And I think what this person was trying to tell me is that that is one way you find your passion. What is that one thing that you naturally just do without thinking about it, right? Maybe that's what your passion is, right? Maybe that's what your passion is. But if you still don't have an answer for that thing, it's fine. Just do something, right? Try a role, try a project, learn a skill. And if I tell you that even though I'm a psychologist today, I have dabbled into a lot of things. I've done computing, IT, project management, done virtually anything. There was a time when there was this IT rave. I also enrolled in some IT courses. but everything I did kept on bringing me back here. And at some point, I just said, you know what, maybe I should just stay where I am. So again, you can try many things until you figure out what your passion or your goal is. But if you still haven't figured it out, don't worry. Just take the next step. Ask yourself a question. At this point in my life, what is the next rational thing to do? Take the next step. Sometimes it might include you applying to jobs that you don't really like. Don't worry. Take the next step, right? Take the next step. Just make sure that you're not sitting for so long. Now, one of the reasons why I say take the next step is because I believe that, and that's that prophets are called back to their hometown. Prophets are called back to their hometown. Now, what the state this is a statement that I came up with some years ago, right? And what the statement means to me was that we always find ourselves going back to the experiences that shaped us. What do I mean? If you're somebody, and for me, like I said, I struggle with some mental health, concerns while growing up as a teenager. And it's only normal that eventually the one thing that I'm so passionate about is mental health, right? I'm going back to my hometown. And that's because, again, I'm going to say a statement that I want everyone to not forget, which is that life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you. Never forget this. Life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you. What does that mean? That means that every experience you have in life is designed to prepare you for life. So whether you're sitting in front of me and you're telling me that your experiences have been negative or terrible or unpleasant or traumatic, they are designed to position you for the things that you should actually be doing in life. So sometimes that is one way to really find what your purpose really is to look back and say to yourself, what are the things that I have actually had to deal with life? And if I were to solve this problem for other people, what would that look like? Right? What would that look like? If I'm going to solve the problem that I have had to deal with for other people, what would that look like? And then maybe at that point, you can then start to think about how do I monetize it? Right? And that's what I did eventually, even though I didn't really follow a script. But when I think about it, that's what I did. What I did was to say, hey, I have dealt with this. How do I educate people? And I was happy to do it for free. But at some point, people were willing to pay for it, right? They were willing to pay for it. So when you start to solve problems, people will be willing to pay for it. And what you realize is that's what your purpose really is, right? So your past is an asset in figuring out what your purpose is. Your past is an asset. What you also find out is that your past challenges actually prepare you for the future. So there is no experience you go through that is a waste. Every experience you go through is designed to prepare you for the future. It's designed to prepare you for the now. So I talked about the little boy David earlier. This boy was a boy who was in the wilderness, was tending sheep and livestock. And in that process, he had to face challenges like fighting lions, fighting bears, and using the slingshot, which some of us call the catapult or the slingshot, to kill these animals. And then when he had to fight with a giant, he could rely on his experience, which is, oh, you know what? I have fought these wild animals with this same tool. I can use the same tool to fight the giants. So your past is not wasted no matter how traumatic it is. Rather, it is an asset that can give you insights and can shape your perspectives. So never forget this. Prophets are always called back to their hometown. If you think about people who have really shaped the world, go and read about their history. You'll find out that the problem they solved was the problem they also faced, right? The problem they solved was the problem they also faced. When I started my business, Psychid, one of the things that I said, because I've had to deal with different employers, and I said to myself, The same way I was treated by most of these employers, I don't want my employees to face the same thing, right? And that has been my driving principle in the way I treat my staff, is to make sure that they don't feel the same way, you know. And look, fortunately is that I get feedback of people. So you know what, you've given us a space to grow. And I like that. I might not have a large team, but for the few people that I work with, I want to make sure that they don't experience the same thing. Now, why am I doing that? I'm doing that because I have dealt with employers that were not so pleasant. And I don't want my people to experience the same thing. And that's an example of how your past can shape your future and even your present, right? Now, it's important that you are able to, um, maximize the impact in whatever area you then choose. Now, you might not be convinced that that is the area for you. But whatever you're doing, wherever you find yourself in, you want to make sure that you're putting in your best in that situation. There's a saying that, and some of you might have heard of this saying. It says that the gift of the man will make way for the man, right? Um, Now, some of us use that to mean that your talent would make way for you. And that's true, right? And I'll just stick to that particular interpretation because there are other interpretations. But what it means is that wherever you find yourself, you want to make sure that you get so good at it, even if you don't think that is your purpose. Just get so good at it. The first program I did a program at some point in computer technology. And when I eventually had to go study psychology, it felt like I had wasted my time studying computer technology, right? So look, you wasted your time. Fast forward, I think a couple of years later, before, and that was before COVID came, I realized that there was a gap in delivering convenient service to people and affordable service to people. And I started thinking about tele mental health services. Fortunately for me, I got an organization that wanted someone to develop something in that field. I'd never done it. I just was somebody who had history in computing and also a mental health background. And I said, oh, I can do this, and I started working with that. And then I think 2 years later, COVID hit. COVID came. And of course, when COVID came, telemental health was a big deal now. But I had spent the last 2 years developing apps that could help, people achieve that goal. So that was one of the things that actually positioned me as an expert in that field, because even when the Lagos State Ministry had to develop the Lagos Mind, which is a mental health practice, they had to reach out to me to come and consult and train their people on how to use the services, right? Because somehow a field that I stumbled upon and I thought, oh, I had wasted my time, came in relevant. So some of these that you might be doing right now, you might not need them at least directly in the next few years, but that knowledge is never going to be wasted. So if you find yourself doing something right now, make sure you try to specialize in an area in that field, right? Um, Again, make sure that your expertise align with the needs of the markets. And I'll tell you another experience. When I started my career in the mental health, my goal before graduating, and when I said, oh, I in 300 level, read about child neuropsychology, and I thought this is what I want to do. But unfortunately, my path didn't take me in that direction. My first job was in substance rehabilitation. Wasn't what I wanted to do, but I had to do it because that's the job I got. But some months into the job, there was a new field that came into Nigeria, which is employee assistance program. And we didn't really have any experts in Nigeria as at then. And so my boss reached out to everyone and says, okay, guys, can somebody research about this field and develop a service for us? And everybody says, no, 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 we're not interested. We cannot do it. You're already stressing us too much for us to start doing something extra. And I said, Chris, can you do this? And I said, oh, I will do it. So I spent months researching, and I built a service. Um, And over the years, that has now become an area that I've specialized in. And I'll talk more about this as we go on. But I think it's also important that as we find that one area and we start to develop our knowledge and our skills in that area, that we are also able to share this knowledge with people, right? You want people to know that you know what you know, right? Some of us are usually afraid because they say, "Ah, they will steal my idea, they will steal my idea." And I would say to people that there is no idea that is yours. You don't have monopoly of any idea because ideas fly around. So I had the idea of mental health services. I did not have the money to develop that. And then a few months later, an organization came in and said, oh, they want to develop a mental health service and they need somebody to consult and help them design it. I already have ideas. I already had blueprints of what I wanted to do. So what should I do? Should I tell them, no, I'm going to wait until I have the money to do this? This organization was big enough to get experts from outside the country to develop it. So they could do that. In fact, they already had one person from South Africa who was helping them develop the service, right? The person got stuck because the person wasn't a mental health professional. So they wanted somebody who had background in mental health to help. So I could have said no, but they will find a way. But what I did was to say, you know what? I'll do this with you guys. Why? Because I needed an opportunity to share that knowledge, but most importantly, experiment the knowledge that I have gathered over the years and see if even my idea would work. But I needed to do it without having to pay for it out of my pocket. And that's why when you share your ideas, right? When you share your ideas with people, don't be afraid that they will steal it. If the idea is yours, no one can steal it, right? The truth is, you would only learn enough to refine the idea. And so you also want to be able to take on strategic projects. Like I said, in my case, when they said, oh, Chris, who can develop this EAP program? I said, oh, I will develop it. That's a strategic project. But to be honest, when I said I would take it up, I did not think of it as any strategic thing. I just thought about it as, you know what? It's a good opportunity to learn. What's the worst that can happen? I might as well just do it, right? So in hindsight, I can tell you, oh, now this is a strategic thing to do. But at the point when I made these decisions, there was no strategy to it. The only thing was, it's a good opportunity to learn. Let me learn. So you need to be able to take on some of these things and get them done. Fail at them, make mistakes. It's fine. It is intended to help you in this journey that you're going. Some employees or some people have the habit of rejecting roles or rejecting responsibilities. And I'll talk about that. There's a difference between taking on too much that it becomes stressful and taking up, new endeavors so that you learn. Whereas while we need to be able to strike a balance between work and life, we also need to recognize opportunities without thinking that, so me, I'll not be doing it and they will not be paying me for it. Sometimes when you start out something, you don't need to get paid for it. But what it does is that it positions you for the next steps in your career, right? So again, continuous learning is also another area that I think we need to be able to do. Um, and I would say this that in everything we do in our careers, it's important that while you are trying to figure out what to do, don't play small. Don't play small. Again, I'll go back to when my boss said, oh, can you develop this? And I said, okay, I'll do it. So I started developing it, spent a few months, came up with a plan, implemented it for the organization. It went really big. As and then I was working for the largest mental health service in West Africa. So it was a big thing then. But the challenge that we then faced was that I had to go pitch these services. So all of a sudden, I became a clinical psychologist and a business executive all of a sudden, right? So I had to pitch the idea to organizations. But every time I went to pitch, there were other people who were senior in mental health. And they would always say, Chris, you don't know what they're saying. Go away, because they had been in mental health, but they had not been in EAP because EAP was new. But they were using their age to bully me. We are older than you. We've been here for how many years? So what I did was to say, you know what? I can't compete with these guys. I know one or two times I had an argument with a few of them doing a pitch because I was saying, one of them was saying, don't worry, don't talk to him, just talk to us. After we can talk to him later. And I'm like, no, I came here independently to pitch for my organization. How would you be telling the prospective clients that they shouldn't listen to me? They should just listen to you, and later on you will now talk to me as if we're even from the same organization. So I had to speak up, but I realized I couldn't fight that battle. So what I did was to say to myself, what does it take to become an expert in EAP? And so in Nigeria, in the world generally, there's a certification called the CEP, the Certified Employee Assistant Professional. So you had to write that exam, and it was a US-based exam. Once you pass the exam, then you are, a CEP. In Nigeria, as at then, they didn't have any CEP. So what I did was to say, okay, I'm going to write this exam. Now, but the shocking thing was that it took me 5 years to save up for this exam. The exam was quite expensive. Now, during this period, these other guys also were trying to write the exam, but most of them were failing. 5 years later, I'd gotten enough money, was ready for the exam. One person had passed eventually. So we now had only one SIP in Nigeria. So by the time I wrote the exam, I became the second SIP in Nigeria. So now I could speak and people would say, oh, this guy knows what he's doing, because this is the only second SIP in the whole Nigeria. In fact, in the whole West Africa, right? So it was enough to brag about. But what I did, immediately I passed the exam, I wrote an email to the international body to say, you guys need a representative in Africa, and you don't have any representative in Africa, and I'm one of the only two SIPs in West Africa, I can become your representative. So I went, had some interviews with them, and I became the EAPA commissioner in Africa. Of course, that immediately opened up doors, because when I walk into the room and I'm saying, I'm not just a SIP, I am also a commissioner as well. Now, this is for me is an example of how you can play global. I had some colleagues then who, what they were doing was to say, okay, you know what, we're just going to try to play up to these guys who are already in the field. So they wanted to be friends with these guys in the field. And that's good, because they thought that if they are friends with these people who are already in the field, they would be able to give them some things, some contract as they go on. But I didn't think local. I thought global. I thought, you know what, I need to do this on a big scale to a point where they wouldn't ignore me. And so, whatever field that you're doing, there's always a global game to play. And so, while you're thinking about it, what do I do? What am I doing? You need to also be thinking about, what is the global game here? And some of you might not have thought about, whether you're in banking, in tech, think about the global side of it. It's like, whatever I'm doing right now, are there international opportunities that I can leverage? Right? And you can learn about this by following industry leaders, people who have done something like that. Don't just follow the local leaders. Look out for the international, the industry, the global leaders as well. You need to learn to become a fish in the big pond. I know sometimes it's scary, because in the big pond you have bigger fish and sometimes you can get swallowed. But if you are consistent with what you're doing and you are strategic by connecting with the bigger fishes, you'll find out that you'll be able to attend the kind of parties that these bigger fishes will attend, not because of your own, leverage, but because of the leverage of the bigger fish. So you need to start thinking in that direction, right? Enhancing your exposure, enhancing your credibility, these are very important. But again, it has to be strategic. Now, while we're doing this, let's talk about something I think is more practical. And this for me, if you have a jotter or anything like that, you probably need to write right now. It's creating a vision for yourself, right? But I always say that whether or not you have a big vision, the vision is not necessarily to dictate what you do every day. The vision is just to give you a picture of where you should be heading towards, right? So the vision doesn't necessarily have to be specific, but it could give you a global picture of where you should be heading. And so I'm going to ask a question, and I want you to answer it in your book, whatever you have right now, which is that in the next 5, 10 years, right? If someone could grant you a wish or a miracle um, for your career, what picture would you paint for your career? Now, why I'm asking this question in this way is that I don't want us to be limited by, oh, no, it's not possible. How can this be? Forget about what is possible and what is not possible. Just ask yourself, if someone could give me a miracle for the next 5 and 10 years of my life, of my career, what picture will I paint to them? Again, you don't have to be specific. You say, well, I'll be working in banking, I'll be a bank general manager. You don't have to be specific. You just need to paint a picture of what the career would look like. Now, once you're done with that picture, I want to ask you that if I want you to then ask yourself, a person who has this kind of picture, what would they look like? Are there people with this kind of picture in the society that I can model myself with? Now, that would then begin to help you narrow down what the kind of position a career would look like. Because if you start to say, for example, oh, maybe someone like Tony Elumelu is the kind of person that will, then you're asking, you are already having a picture because you know that you know the kind of position he occupies, that you know that maybe that's the kind of occupation position I should be looking to occupy as well. And then once you have that, the next question you want to ask yourself is, what does it take to get here? What are the different steps that we need to take to get to this? Sometimes the solution or the answers to this question is already in the people that have a similar picture to the picture that you have painted for your career. You probably don't need to reinvent anything. All you just need to do is to look at those people and say, where did they start from? And this is why one of the things I like to read is autobiographies or biographies of people, because I want to see their journey. What did they do? How did they get there? Because sometimes some of us are struggling to say, I want to reinvent something. You don't need to. You probably just need to look at what people have done and see how you can transform that to fit your own situation. And I think, yes, the best artists are thieves. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but if you really study the history of arts, you find out that the best artists are people who probably copied other people and they just modified it. So you can also be a great artist by looking at the pictures that people who have gone ahead of you have painted, and then you can repaint that for yourself, right? It's also important that on this journey, you don't forget that it's the little steps that eventually will take us there. So celebrate the small wins, right? Because that is how you accumulate the success. I talked about my own experiences, even though I'm summarizing it and it looks like, oh, this thing just happened fast, fast. It did not happen fast, fast. There were periods of sadness, depression in this journey, right? But what I realized was that I didn't really start out with a script. I was taking it one step at a time. And that's what I think many of us should be able to do. Take it one step at a time. I remember when I thought about starting my business, and I decided to start my business because my boss then was always abusing us. He would say, "You people are local, you don't know anything." He was working in the UK. Sorry. Okay, yeah, I was just reading a message in the chat. Yeah, he was always telling us that if you guys were abroad, you would not even be taking this position. He was always doing all of that. And I got fed up and I said to myself, I need to start up my own business, right? But again, I was scared that if I start this business and I do not have clients, what will I eat? So what I did was to say to myself, I'm going to start to put myself out there for the next couple of months. I registered a business. Then I said to myself, once I can get clientele that can pay my salary or twice my salary for the next 3 months, I'm going to quit the job. And the moment I was able to get enough clients to pay me for the next 3 months, I quit the job. So again, this is just a simple strategy. What I did was register a business, get enough clients to pay me for the next 3 months, and then I quit the job. Some people will tell you if you can have enough saving for the next 6 months, you can quit. What they are really telling you is you need to plan your exit. If you are in a career or in a position or in a company that makes you feel stuck, don't just resign. Plan your exit, right? And understand that it is one step at a time, one step at a time. Because the reason why sometimes we remain stuck is because we want to see the whole picture, and the picture is not looking good, so we just remain there. But I can tell you for free that you don't need to see the big picture. Sometimes you just need to see the next step in front of you and take it, right? See the next step instead, or the next 2, 3 steps in front of you and take it. Understand that life is about flexibility. You need to be able to adjust as you go on. Adjust as you go on. Now, I really wanted to talk about something I call the act of self-presentation, because I think this is very important in our career. The way we present ourselves is very important. But I'm not just talking about how you look, which is good. How you look, the way you communicate, your professionalism. One of the things I learned when I was doing my internship, then I think in UCH, my supervisor was always coming in dressed with a tie, even though he wasn't really the best dressed guy, but he would come in with a tie, tucked in shirts. Most psychologists that I knew then were not dressing like that. And one of the days I asked him, why are you always dressing with tie and shirt? And he said something to me. He says, Chris, we are in a profession that people don't recognize yet. And I'm in the midst of doctors and all of that people respect over a psychologist. One of the things I need to be able to do is that I need to be able to present myself in a way that people will want to listen to me. And I took that. So when I got a job and I started working, I would always go in with a blazers, tie, even though it wasn't the most expensive suit, but something really clean and nice. In fact, at some point they were saying that I was a fashionista. And to be honest, I don't really care about fashion. But I realized that I needed to present myself in a way that was necessary so that people would address me that way. Now, let me also tell you, some of you might say, but people like Mark Zuckerberg, they don't used to dress with all those things. The question I ask is, are you Mark Zuckerberg? There's a point you get to in your life, in your career, that the way you dress doesn't matter anymore. And I can tell you that I probably am in that stage. When I go to work these days, I probably just put on a t-shirt, but it wasn't always like that. When I started, I had to make sure that my belt and my shoe we had to match. My tie, my pocket square had to match. I had to put on everything to match, not necessarily because that was what would make me a professional, but I realized that people would had to look at it. I remember one of the clients, I had one of a very notable person in the country. Um, my organization has sent me to the person. And when I went there, the person said to me, he said, oh, Chris, you don't look like a psychologist. You look like someone that should be in the front of a magazine. That's just to give you an idea of how I was dressing then, right? You're like, man, the way this guy is dressed, he should be in front of a magazine or something like that. But I needed to do that to gain people's attention. So sometimes your presentation is important, the way you present yourself. But I think for me, the most important thing in self-presentation is not really the way you dress, it's in the strategies you use to portray yourself. And that's where the things like some of us want to be modest. We don't want to seem like a threat. We don't want to intimidate people. We don't want to flatter. We don't want to intimidate people. We just want to be modest. Now, you can read this up after this presentation. It's called self-presentation styles. There are different self-presentation styles. Some people will tell you there's a right one or there's a wrong one. There's no right or wrong way. You just need to be able to study your situation and determine the best self-presentation to use. So modesty, for example, is a self-presentation. You must know some people who, if they do something good in the company, your organization, and Tunde, you've done well. They'll say, no, I did not do anything. It's just God. Now, that is what we call modesty. That is what they are doing. They are trying to present themselves as saying, I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat. Oh, I'm not a threat. Now, that can work in some situations, but in some situations, you shouldn't be using that kind of presentation because people would ignore you if they think you are not a threat. So if your strategy is to slowly creep in and take power, then you can use that presentation. But if you work in a situation where they would only pay attention to people who are a threat to them, then maybe your presentation should be intimidation. Somebody that walks into the room and everybody will know that you've arrived. And it doesn't have to be your personality, and it has nothing to do with your religion or your beliefs. It's just that you realize that in that situation, that is what you need to do to achieve your goal. Sometimes it could be flattery. And some of you don't like using that, but flattery is important. I was working with one of the, again, I've worked with a number of people. So there's this chairman who was, formerly, one of the leaders in Nigeria. And I had to, get some things from him. And the first thing I did when I was going was I got a mug, I got his picture, I got a magic mug, and I did this picture on the magic mug so that when you put a hot water in it, his picture appears. And then I went and I gave it to him and I said, "Oh, thank you, sir. I just, And the first thing he says to me, he smiled. So because he knew what I was doing, and he says to me, Chris, flattery will get you everywhere. What do you want? Right? That's what I was looking for. What I was looking for is I want this guy to listen to me. And the things I needed to do was to flatter him. Again, would I flatter everybody I see in any organization? Not necessarily, right? We just need to be able to recognize that as you grow in your career, you can choose how you present yourself in different situations. But the key, most important thing is you want to be able to present yourself as somebody who has confidence and somebody who is credible, not somebody who can be ignored. In some situations, you probably want to be modest, but not in all situations. There is also the importance to take note of the politics in our career journey. Some of us will say, "Oh, I don't like politics." I agree with you. But the question is, what exactly is politics? Politics is the struggle for power. And in every social group, there's going to be a struggle for power. So if you are working in an organization, there would always be a struggle for power. And if you don't know how to play that, you probably will be left out. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person. It just means that you're somebody who is strategic enough to understand what is required. So, for example, you do a job. You don't want a situation where your boss feels like you're trying to threaten them, right? But you are going to look for subtle ways to let people know. I'm currently out of the country, and even here where I am, there's still a lot of office politics. I was speaking to one of the government officials a few weeks ago who got fired from work. And this person got fired because this person got into the position. Things were really messy in the position. So the person said to themselves, "I'm going to take the next 3 years to shape things." But this person is a very modest person. So they were doing things quietly, quietly. Unfortunately, after 2 years, they hadn't gotten the result they were looking for, but they were still making progress and they were happy with the progress. But somebody needed to take the fall that 2 years and things are still the same way they are. And unfortunately, the person's boss sacrificed them and said, "Oh, this is the person that is the problem." So they fired this person. And this person was angry that, why would my boss defend me? My boss knew what I was trying to do. And that is an example of how sometimes we ignore the fact that there is politics happening where we are. And we expect that people will defend us. People would only defend you if defending you aligns with their interest. If defending you doesn't align with their interest, they will defend themselves. So in this case, either the boss got fired or this person gets fired. Who do you think will get fired? Of course, the person gets fired. So learning to identify key decision makers and influencers, and then positioning yourself informally or strategically is very important in every organization. Sometimes it could be as simple as just having a conversation and say, "Oh, you know what? We've done a good job this year, and I can tell that while I was even working on this project, it wasn't so easy. I had to do this, I had to do that, I had to do that with the help of my boss." What have you done? You've done something here. You've told them that while it is a teamwork, I was instrumental in getting this done. But at the end of that conversation, you still gave credit to your boss. So your boss is not going to feel like a threat, like you are a threat. However, the people that matter have heard you and they have also realized that you played a significant role in achieving that goal. These are little subtle things that we can do, right? We also need to be able to take advantage of the place of people that are your what I call mentors or people that you can cultivate alliance with. Some of the major contracts that I've gotten over the years were people that I worked with, and I formed an alliance with them. And because they also have seen that Chris would never say no, Chris would always say that it is possible. If you bring a problem to me, I would always say it is possible. Even if I don't know the answer, we will find the answer. So I remember one of my former bosses, left the organization. She got a contract. She pitched for the contract, got the contract, and then she realized that she didn't have an idea of what to do with the contract. And then she reaches out to me and said, Chris, is this doable? Tell me now so I can tell them I'm no more doing. And I said, it is doable, right? And I spent the week researching and reading about it. And I came up with a blueprint. And we went and presented it. And the company accepted it. And I'm like, oh, great. You need people who can see your value, and they can, when they have an opportunity, they can reach out to you. You need to be able to position yourself as that go-to guy, right? And like I said, it's also the win-win mentality. When while you are pitching your own strengths and the things you've done, you are still saying, I'm giving credit to all of these people, so that it's not just like it's you taking the credit. You need to learn how to leverage networks and mentors. And I've talked a lot about how I have leveraged a lot of these mentors and networks over the years. You need to be able to build on the shoulders of people who have gone ahead of you, right? And that's very important. In my place, there's a proverb that says, a young man doesn't ask who killed his father until he holds the head of the cutlass. So sometimes when you're working in a field that has a lot of competition, for example, you might not be so, you might be very strategic so that you're not appearing as a threat to certain people, right? You are aligning yourself. You are aligning yourself as the go-to person. There are many things that I've done over the years that were links from my mentors or from my senior colleagues, because they realized that this guy would always find a way. So when we have this, the person we can rely on is Chris. And sometimes that's probably what you want to do to leverage in your career growth. You don't have to be the one with all the opportunities, but you need to have solved enough problems for people over the years that when there's a problem that comes up, they think about you. That is how you leverage, networks and mentors, right? Uh, Also, feel free to reach out to people. Reach out to people and say, you know what, I like what you're doing. Just create those networks. I like what you're doing. This is a bright idea. I think we can improve on it by doing this, by doing that, by doing that. Would you mind if I take out the next 1 week to help you solve this problem? Right? So you're asking for their permission to solve certain problems that you know that they have. You don't need to charge for it. And don't be afraid that, what if they take my idea and they don't reward me? To be honest, there are some people that will take your idea and they will not reward you for it. And I've experienced that. But what you will find out is that there is also the law of what they call it, seed and harvest, sowing and reaping. There is no how you solve problems for people over the years that you will not eventually reap it. One of the things that I've learned about the universe is that sometimes the universe wants to test us. And this is where you see people who fall by the wayside, because Chris has said, solve problem for people. You solve problem for the first person, they don't reward you. You solve problem for the second person, they don't reward you. And you say, me, I will never ever solve problem for anybody again in my life. Me, never. What you've just done is that you've failed that test, right? Because you probably didn't try it enough to get the people who would value what you have done and then reward you for it. Or sometimes the reward, and I've also noticed that sometimes it takes years for the rewards to come. So there are people that I did something for, I solved the problem for them years ago. And then it took them about 5 years or 6 years or sometimes even 10 years to reach out and say, oh, Chris, there's this project and I thought about you. Of course, I thought then these guys did not reward me, they did not acknowledge me. But 6, 7, 8 years later, they're reaching out and saying, oh, Chris, there's this project. Would you like to jump on it? Right? Because you've left a mark on them. And so never forget this, that sometimes the things that you're doing right now might look like it's not paying you, but think global, think long term. Make that a habit, make that your personality. I am the go-to person for problem solving. Make that your personality, and I can assure you that eventually it will pay off. Right? Again, mentorship, coaching, Guidance is very important. Leveraging on the experiences of other people is very, very important. When people criticize you, don't take it as they are attacking your person. No, they are only analyzing what you have done, but giving you it is your job to take the feedback that is important for you to be able to grow. You need to be able to leverage on that. You also need to learn how to take risk because that's important, right? Um, a few days ago, and this is, I was doing some bit of audit on my journey as an entrepreneur. And one of the things that I saw was that there are many risks that I took. I remember when I started so I had started my business twice, right? First time, wasn't really what I expected, and the second time I started it again. But the second time I started it, it was because I had represented an organization somewhere, and a case came up. I consulted on the case, and I realized that there was a need here. There was a need, they needed a service. The organization I was representing didn't have that service. But when I went to pitch to consult, I consulted as if, don't worry, we'll solve this problem, and all of that. And so when they went back, the HR guys went back to the management guys went back and they sat on it and said, oh, we need someone to solve this problem for us. And they contacted me and said, oh, Chris, we're opening a bid for this solution. Would you be willing to bid for it? And I said, oh, yes, I'll be able to bid for it. And that was the second time I started my business again. So, but of course, to bid for it, I needed a team, I needed all of that. And I started assembling everything. I called up my lawyer, they re-registered the business again. I reached out to some of my colleagues in the past and I said, you know what, I need to give you guys a contract. There's something that is coming up. We need to prepare for it. That was a risk because I had to spend a lot of my money hoping that I would get the contract. Eventually, I did get the contract. But what if I didn't get the contract? Right? What if I didn't get it? I've also talked about how many of my senior colleagues reach out to me and say, Chris, there's this thing we want to do, but we are not sure if we can do it. To be honest, I probably didn't even have an idea of what it was, but I always say we can do it, right? Because taking risk is usually an opportunity to learn. The worst that can happen is that you fail. Some of us don't like to hear that. You don't want to fail. But failure is simply an opportunity to learn. That's what it is. Failure is nothing but an opportunity to learn. And I think what we need to recognize is that some of us, when we hear the word failure, we think that you are the one that has failed. No, it is not you that failed. It is the project or whatever you are doing that did not work out. You are not a failure. No matter how many times you have handled projects that failed, the fact that a project fails doesn't make you a failure. Because when you take risk and when you fail, it gives you an opportunity to learn. I think it was Thomas Edison, I might be wrong, but Thomas Edison that said something about when he was trying to invent, I think, the light bulb, and he did that about 100 times and failed 99 times. And they asked him, oh, you know what, you failed this number of times. And he says, no, I have only learned 99 ways how not to do this thing. That is what failure is all about. Sometimes it's an opportunity for you to learn and improve on the future, right? So be open to taking risk. Be open to taking risk. But the risk also must be calculated. And how do you calculate your risk? You want to look at, can I handle this if something were to go wrong, right? So for example, when I said, oh, I started my business again, I didn't start it again thinking, oh, I'm emptying all my account, and if I don't get this contract, then I'm finished. No, I was able to say, okay, how much can I spare that in case I don't get this contract, I am happy to still lose. And that's what I decided to put in. So there has to be some rationale in how much risk you can take. I read a book, I think decades ago, not a few years ago. And the book, I can't remember the author, but the book was titled Eat the Ugly Frog. And I'm trying to remember his name now, but Eat the Ugly Frog, which is also a way of saying eat the fattest frog. If you must eat a frog, make sure that the one you are eating is fat. If you must take a risk, make sure that the opportunities are, massive. So seize opportunities, right? That's what I'm trying to say. No matter how ugly it is, seize those opportunities. You want to be able to spot for potentials, spot for needs that have not been met. I have talked a lot about how sorry, there's a person's audio that is on. Can you mute? Okay, thank you. So again, spot opportunities, spot potentials, and learn to seize them. You get into a space, there's a need that has not been met, try to take it, right? Learn to act instead of hesitating. Calculate your risks instead of saying, what will happen? What will happen? Try, take the step and let's see what happens, right? Again, we also need to understand that you need to be able to do the work that nobody's doing. And I've given examples of how that has played out in the past. When people are saying no, they are not going to do it, it's an opportunity actually for you to shine, right? So think about it and say, is this something I can handle? Go ahead and do it. Because like I said, it would help you build skills, it would help you learn, but it will also give you the opportunity to shine as well. And as we go on, I really want to be fast so that we can take the questions and answers. We need to also learn how to plan for uncertainties. The world that we live in is changing, is volatile, is uncertain. There's a lot of ambiguity. So you need to have that agile mindset, where you can move, you can quickly move from one plan to the other, right? Something is not working, you need to assess it immediately. Don't just jump without assessing. Assess it. Do I need to give more time? Do I need to speak to somebody, or do I need to move on to something else? You need to create that ability to move very fast so that you don't feel stuck, right? And let's really talk about some of the things that some of us know are looking for in terms of how do you earn more? How do you increase your earning power? I think one of the ways to increase your earning power is to increasing your skill and your knowledge. You need to make sure that you position yourself with credentials that are sought after. And I've given examples of how I did that for myself. Is, by the time I became the second SIP in Nigeria, it was easy for me to detect what I wanted to earn because there's no other person, with that kind of skill or that ability. So you need to look for an area that you can specialize in, such that when people need somebody, they're thinking about you as well. Your profile, your personal branding is also very important. So things like your LinkedIn profile, for example, you need to have a portfolio that you can send to people. Don't be afraid to, I remember when I would send emails to my friends and I'll put, Chris, MSc, this, clinic consultant, something. I started calling myself consultant even before I started consulting. These are ways to brand yourself ahead, right? So again, you can brand yourself in a ways that position you as somebody who's expensive, somebody who knows what they're saying, and somebody who can deliver value, right? That's very important. Again, how do you transition from where you are? I think the first thing is to, again, identify what are you bringing to the industry that others don't have. And then once you identify that, what problems can you solve? Then you want to sell that to people. You want to reach out to people and say, I can help you do this. I can help you solve this problem. By doing that, you're positioning yourself so that if there are opportunities, they will reach out to you. You have to be strategic. You have to be able to, again, I've talked a lot about how you can do things for free for people because you are positioning yourself to be able to earn more eventually. And I think I'm probably will talk about this during the question and answer, but it's more about how you can also detect your contracts as well. But I'll talk about this during the question and answer. Now, 2025 is coming, right? What can we do? Anticipate the shifts. Before COVID, I anticipated that we're going to a period where telemental health would be the major thing. I didn't know it would happen so fast. My prediction then was it would happen in 2030. So I started preparing for it. But 2 years when I started preparing for it, COVID hit and we started having to do telemental health, right? So in whatever field you are, you need to be able to sit down and say, what is the trend right now? What could be the trend in the next couple of years? How can I start preparing for the trend? That is very important, right? being able to predict trends and prepare for them is very, very important. Also, you need to leverage soft skills. Soft skills like communication, negotiation, leadership, emotional intelligence, right? Resilience. These are things you don't just focus on the hard skills, also try to learn the soft skills. Because as you grow in your career, you realize something. The hard skills are not as important as the soft skills. Because at some point in your career, nobody will require you to do the technical work anymore because there will be people who will do the technical work. What they require from you are things like leadership, communication, presentation, emotional intelligence. Those are the things that they will require from you. And I think it is important that you start to build them because as we go into 2025 and the coming years, those are the skills that will be more recognized, especially with AI. AI can do the technical job eventually, but AI would not be able to do the soft skills. So if you can begin to acquire those soft skills now, you realize that you position yourself so that no matter what the crave of AI is, it will never replace you, right? It will never replace you. Again, I said this before, failure is an opportunity to grow, right? So when you take risk and peradventure you fail, understand that it is an opportunity to learn lessons. So fail fast and fail forward. Fail fast and fail forward. We're too afraid to fail, but what we should be doing is that we should be failing, but failing very fast so that we can learn and we can move on. So that we can learn and we can move on. Right. I want to talk about imposter syndrome quickly, right? Because many times, some of us in our careers, we do struggle with that belief that we are not good enough. But imposter syndrome doesn't mean you are not good enough. Imposter syndrome simply means you have set an expectation and you don't want to fall short of those expectations. So the next time you have a project and you are afraid that I might not do well, you need to say to yourself, it's not that I will not do well. It's simply that I have an expectation of what my performance should look like, and I don't want to fall short of that. But rather, what you need to do is to start to replace those negative thoughts, thoughts like, I am not qualified, I cannot do this, I will fail, to I am learning. It's an opportunity for me to learn, right? And then you want to get feedback from people who like your mentors and encouragement as well. I think the other thing you want to do, which I mentioned, is that you want to have what I call a milestone journal, like the boy David, where he had killed a lion, killed a bear, and when he was trying to fight a giant, he could look into his milestone journal and say, if I fought this, I can fight this giant as well. From time to time, we need to be able to look back and say to ourselves, what are the victories that I have gotten? And if I could get these victories, it simply means I can get more victories. If I can get these victories, I can get more victories. Never give up, right? If there's anything you should not do as you build your career, is never give up. Keep on evolving, keep on learning, right? Obstacles are a test of your commitment and creativity. And I mentioned that earlier, that when you see challenges, they're probably just testing you. You probably need to keep on trying until you eventually get the result that you're looking for. Learn to be persistent because that would help you at last the failures that you've had. People who have failed in people who have succeeded in businesses as people who have failed in businesses as well. They fail, they learn, they get up, and they keep on going. And I'm sure that if you've read about the life of someone like Steve Jobs, you would understand exactly what I'm talking about. And I think at this point, I would try to round up by saying I've spoken a lot about a lot of things, but it's important for us to know that it's not a one size fits all for everyone, right? You can take bits and bits of what I have said in this conversation, put them together, and help gain more clarity for yourself. And most importantly, create a plan for the next year. But I think the most important thing for me is you need to do it afraid, right? You need to do it afraid. So if there's fear, if there's anxiety, it's normal. It's okay. If you're thinking, oh, I don't know what the next, it's fine. Just make sure that you are not sitting for too long. Do it afraid, right? Do it afraid. And that's where I would like to end this conversation and open the floor for questions. So if you have questions about your career concerns, immediate career concerns, or you need clarifications or even additional resources from everything that I've shared, feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to answer your questions. So I'll be handing over to Titi to take the questions.
Oh, wow. What a beautiful, beautiful, enlightening session we've had here this evening. Could you celebrate Dr. Chris, please, with your favorite emoji, hearts, whatever. Could you please do that? Thank you very much, Dr. Chris, for your time. It's been rewarding. Yes. I've journaled, I've written down some things that I am going to go back to myself. I can't even wait to go back to the entire slide and the recording, right? To really get into it and digest and really make use of this information that you have provided for us. Really, really transformative, really insightful. Okay, so please, can we start bringing our question on board? Please send in your questions. Okay, so while we wait for people to send in their questions, right? So something has been on my mind because in our age and time, in 2024 or in 21st century, people have a lot of career options, right? So there is a lot that you could probably do with your life as it were. And the challenge with most people is choosing, or some people even chose a path and they stayed on that path for a while, but after a while they feel like, oh, there's more. There is more to be done. There's more for me. I think that this place that I am in is not really giving me expression as I would, okay? So what can someone do, right? Someone who is multi-talented, multi-passionate, who has multiple career choices, how can they really streamline their choice and make the best choice? Because what we have
Hello. Hello, I can hear you. Hello. Oh my.
Dr. Chris, did you get my question, please?
No, I didn't. You went off at some point.
Oh, apologize, must be my network. So I was asking that someone who has multiple career choice or career choices, how can they streamline those choices to make the best decision? Because what we have seen is that when people have a lot of options, they end up not making the best, right, decision. What can they do to help streamline their choices and make the best choice when it comes to their career?
Oh, okay, I think I would say the first thing I would say that there is actually nothing like the best choice in the long run. And let me explain that. Many times, and I think the biggest problem is that we usually think that if I make a choice now, that's going to be the end, and that's not true. That means that there are always opportunities for you to review the choice that you have made, right? So if at any point you think, maybe this is not the best choice, you can always try something else. Now, of course, I do admit that you might not have the same opportunities at that point, right? But you can start to make you can hello. Hello.
Akwai sanyi a can ko? Akwai sanyi. Allah. Tunda an yi ruwa a can.
Sorry, apologies.
Awesome. Yeah, it's
Please
fine.
remain so that we can have an orderly class, please.
Yeah, so you're never stuck. You can always review your choices and make other decisions. I think that's the first thing that I would say. The other thing that I would say, is when you have multiple options and you have to choose from and take which one should I choose from. If you're somebody who already has a picture of where you want to be in the next 5 years, right? Then what you should be asking yourself is which of these choices that I have right now can put me on that path to get me to that place where I want to be, right? So number one. Number two, you want to also look at what resources can I get out of this situation. So resources sometimes can be opportunities to learn. So if you have multiple opportunities or career choices to make, you ask yourself, can this give me an opportunity to learn? Number one. Number two, can it give me financial freedom? You want to ask yourself that. Number three, can it give me psychological freedom as well? Now, so you're looking at it from a psychological perspective, from a financial perspective, and of course, from a learning perspective. And then finally, you're looking at it from, if I look at the future, can this take me to where I want to be? Right? And maybe you also want to look at it, can this give me the opportunity to develop the network that I need? Now, the answers could be yes, 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 or no, 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 depending on the situation. When you think about all of these things that I've asked for, network, learning, financial, I talked about network, learning, financial, future goals, mental and physical health. What else? Yeah, I've talked about all of these things. Look at all those opportunities and first start by ranking them. So, opportunity number one, what is the tendency of this opportunity for giving me all of these things? Mental health, physical health, financial goal, learning opportunity, networking, all of that. By the time you rank all of these things, you would have reduced to maybe 2 or 3 options. Then you ask yourself, out of these 5 things that I mentioned, network, future, finance, all of that, learning, which is the most important for me right now? Which is the most important for me right now? And you probably want to go with the job or the opportunity that gives you more of that important aspect. There was a time in my career as well where, and I talked about this, where I came up with this plan for telemental health, but I didn't have the money to execute it. And now I got an opportunity with a company that was willing to fund developing mental health services, telemental health services. They had the money. What that did for me was that during that period, I also got another full-time job that would pay decently well, right? So I could choose either getting the full-time job or going to this consultancy, right, where I can consult. The thing about the consultancy was, at the time when I accepted the contract, it was just a 9 months contract. The full-time job was job security, means that at least you have a job. As long as you're doing well, you have a job for more than, but this was just for 9 months. So at the end of 9 months, I had to start looking for another job. But I realized that at the end of 9 months, it's different from when you had a title of, in your CV, I had a title of, clinical psychologist, or a title of consultant mental health professional. And I was working for a company that was big, and people realized that I was consulting. So I knew that, you know what, at the end of these 9 months, my status will have changed. But not just that my status will have changed, I would have learned a lot in developing telemental health service. Then, of course, it also was paying decently well as well. So when I looked at it, I had to then sacrifice. Do I go for job security, or do I go for this short-term contract that would give me an opportunity to learn? And eventually I made the decision to go for the short-term contract. Why? Because at that point, what I needed the most was the credibility in the name that this guy has consulted for so and so, right? And if you can see some of the companies that I've worked with over the years, I am strategic to picking multinationals and saying, I want to consult for oil and gas. Because they, over the years, give you more credibility when you stand. When you stand and say, I worked for somewhere full time, or I consulted for this person for 1 year or for 2 years, this is a multinational. Wherever you go to, and you say, I consulted for Chevron, for example, people will want to listen to you. So that was my priority. My priority then was to say, I'm somebody who is new in the field. I need to gain credibility. And the only way to gain credibility is to work with the big guys. And that's what I was doing. So for some people, your priority might be, I want to earn enough money for my family. Make your decision based on that. For some other person, your priority might be, I want to learn as much. Make your decision based on that. when you think about this key that I've given, which is look at all these important things, rank them, and make your decision based on the opportunity, the career, or the career that gives you these opportunities. But finally, understand that it is okay to have made the wrong decision. It's okay. Because there's actually nothing like a wrong decision. So if 2 years later you realize, no, I should have gone for that, it's fine. In fact, there's something we call problem solving skills. One of the steps to problem solving skills is the ability to review the solution that you implemented and learn from it and say, okay, was it the best solution? How can I learn from it so that I don't make the same mistake again? That's what you should be. And I can tell you that I've made some of those kind of decisions in my life, in my career as well. Wrong decisions, but I learned from them. There are many organizations that I consulted for. Some of them did not even pay me. Some of them, I had to drag them first, before they could even eventually pay me. Some was terrible experiences, but all of them have shaped my knowledge and shaped my experience. So that's what I would advise, that if you have multiple options, rank them according to the pillars of wellness. When you look at all the pillars of wellness, job satisfaction, future learning, mental health and physical well-being, finances, networking, rank all of them and say, which is the most important to me right now? Now, which of these jobs can give me all of this, but can give me more of the most important thing for me? And that way, you'll be able to make the right decision. Does this answer your question, Titi?
Very profound. Thank you so much. Okay, I think the other question we have is very, very similar to what I asked initially.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just add this to the questions. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
how can someone stay motivated? You've chosen this path. Like they say,
Mm-hmm.
life is a bed of roses, right? So you get to a point in your career where you face obstacles, where you face challenges, where sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
even ask yourself, who sent me? Like, what am I doing? So how do you stay motivated those times? Thank you.
Okay, there is something called so by the way, there are different theories of motivation to explain how someone can stay motivated, right? But one of the theories of motivation, it's called the expectancy theory. The expectancy theory says that for you to be motivated, you need to value the reward that you are going to get from whatever you are doing. So you need to value the reward, right? So you need to value the reward, number one. Number two, you need to believe that you can get the reward. That means when you're done with whatever you're doing, they will give you the reward. Then number three, you must have the ability to do what it takes to get the reward, right? It's the expectancy theory, very simple theory. And so for people who are struggling with motivation, they need to ask themselves, what do I want? Right? What do I want? That's the question you can ask yourself. At this point in my life, what do I want? Now, the job, for example, you might be working in a place, and I've done that. I've worked in a place that was terrible. And what happened in that process was I said to myself, I need to start up a business, right? But while I'm starting up this business, I need clientele. And I needed to network the professionals within this organization to be able to get the clientele that I was looking for. So I stayed, but during that period, I started something, registered a business, was networking. The key thing I want to point out here was that during this period, the things that kept me motivated was that I kept on, when I wake up in the morning, I tell myself, you have 5 months to starting your own business. So it's not the organization that kept me motivated. It's the fact that I needed to remain in that organization to be able to start my own business, right? I needed the resources within the organization to be able to start my own business. So expectancy theory says there is a reward. My reward wasn't really about the organization. My reward was about what I would get as a result of remaining in this organization, right? So you need to be able to think about it from that perspective. If what I will get by remaining in this organization is that I will learn, that should be your reward. So when you wake up in the morning and you're going to work telling yourself it's an opportunity to learn. If your reward is I need to save up money to write a certification course, and I told you how I waited for 5 years to write a certification course. So if I need to save up enough money to write a certification course, for example, and if I quit this job, I wouldn't have that money. That should be your motivation. You're waking up in the morning and saying, you know what, I'm going to this job because I need to save money and I need that money to be able to pay for this certification course, right? So you need to find something that you value and tie it to the work that you do. Find something that you value and tie it to the work that you do. That is how you stay motivated, right? Also, you should also have an exit plan. If the situation is terrible, have an exit plan. That means if you think this situation can never get better, have an exit plan. Why? Because your motivation would drop if psychologically you believe that there's no way out. The moment the brain believes there's no way out, the brain stops trying because the brain feels there's no reward. So there's no need to try. So you need to say to yourself, brain, there's a way out. Don't worry. There's a way out. I have a 5-year plan. I have a 2-month plan. I have a 6-month plan. I wouldn't have to deal with this forever. There is a way out. That way, you keep yourself motivated. You keep yourself being able to endure whatever the situation is until you're able to get your reward and you're able to leave the situation. Does this answer your question?
So Chris, thank you so very much for today. Our time is running really fast and we have to go. And someone dropped a question. I'm trying to understand what it means. Edge or does career have impact? I don't think I really understand the question. I think what the person is saying is that can your career give you an edge? Like, can it make you stand out?
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Well,
and that would be our
yes. Again, if you say that, can your career give you an edge? I think maybe the question should be, can the decisions you make give you an edge in the career that you have chosen? It's not the career that gives you an edge. Your career doesn't define you, right? Rather, it is you already have the potential. It is the decisions that you make to use your potential or to harness those potential that will give you the edge. So if I make a decision to learn more, for example, that gives me an edge. If I make a decision to learn how to present myself, in a way that people will pay attention to me, that will give me an edge, right? It's the decisions that you make and the actions that you take that will give you an edge in your career.
Wow. Well done, Dr. Chris. Thank you. A million.
Sorry, there's a question here that says, I don't know if it's to me personally, but it's from someone. He says that I graduated with a bachelor's degree in medical physiology initially. I wanted to enroll for medicine, but now that I graduated, I have a broader view of healthcare. I can improve patient health outcomes without direct contact with patients. But right now, I am stuck I'm stuck between choosing to study epidemiology and healthcare management. Both are rewarding for me. What can I do to get clarity? So I think, again, going back to what I said, you want to look at your strengths, right? You also want to look at what is required for both what do you call it, both fields. And you want to see which one would my personality align with. A very, very simple thing you can actually do is also to do a simple personality test as well. You can do a Myers-Briggs personality test. I think you can get a free version online. Because Myers-Briggs will tell you the kind of professions or the kind of professions that require your skills or the kind of personality that you have. So what you are describing here is one is more research-based, data-based, and one is more management-based. So when you think about the career progression for both of them, which one in the next 10 years, which one do you think will be attractive to you? Number two, which one do you think that you can endure over a long period of time? And number three, which one would permit you to transition easily? So, for example, it might be easier for you to transition from epidemiology to healthcare management, and more difficult to transition from healthcare management to epidemiology, right? So sometimes, and I think I made this kind of decision. I talked about how in school then I was virtually good in almost everything. But when I wanted to make a decision between clinical psychology and industrial psychology, I asked myself the same question. When I graduate, which one would permit me to transition back? It is easier to transition from clinical psychology to industrial psychology. And it is harder to transition from industrial psychology to clinical psychology. So I chose clinical psychology because I realized that if I no longer like this area, it will still be easy. I probably just need to do one certification course. But if I do industrial, I need to go back and do another MSc. And I don't think that's what I want to do. So you can choose, if you can't make a decision, just choose the one that you know that it will be easy. And I think, like I said, it might be easier to transition from epidemiology to healthcare management than the other way around. So you can start with that. And if you think, I don't like this anymore, you can still make the switch. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Dr. Chris. We are super grateful to have you on the call this evening. Thank you for sharing with us from your wealth of knowledge. We are so grateful. God bless you. All right, so I'm going to hand over to Tolu. Tolu has something to share with everyone on this call. Tolu, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Amazing. You can hear me, right?
Yes, please, loud and clear.
Yeah, awesome. So, wow, thank you so much, Dr. Chris. I really appreciate this. This is actually amazing, inspiring for me personally, and all of that. So it's actually something worth the time, much more than what we can pay for. And this is actually me also saying thank you. And I apologize, I can't share my video right now. Kind of it's kind of impossible for me to share right now because of circumstances around me right now. So, but I would sincerely want to actually express our gratitude as a people, as a community of learners, to actually to Dr. Chris. And I want everyone in the chat section to say to give Doctor something, thumbs up, thank you. Yeah, I can see that already anyways. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. So yeah, it's been a great evening actually for us, for me as a person, and this is GradePlus Africa, and I'll just say a few things about GradePlus Africa and what you should expect from the community that you all are in right now. So Doctor has actually gone out of his own way to help us actually have a better view of next year, and also apart from just next year, give you a solid explanation of what it means to actually have career clarity. And this is helpful for everyone actually. So what do we, because quite a number of you, I know that probably your first contact with GradePlus Africa is this webinar. So I'm just going to say a few things about us. So GradePlus Africa is an EdTech company established in Nigeria right now. We are operating in Nigeria, but our scope is Africa. And what we do at GradePlus Africa is we target two solutions in the education space. And education space, I say, both to students and also professionals, because as a professional, your learning curve doesn't end after you leave school. So we actually focus on two solutions, offering two solutions into education in space in Africa. And number one is we help our audience, students and professionals, improve their cognitive ability and professional skill to improve productivity. And secondly, we help our students and professionals connect with the career path that fit their personality well. And this, just like Doctor mentioned when he answered the last question, was that talking about taking career personality tests to help you get more in-depth insights about what worked well for you. So, sorry, check. Oh, sorry, you can mute yourself if you are not talking. So thank you. So we help African students and professionals connect with the best career path that fit them in the African context. And why we're doing this is because we understand the space in the career personality congress space that majorly we right now we have limited African-based, African-tailored result. And basically what I mean by that is that you could go to places like system personality, which is very comprehensive enough. Okay, but having the ability to streamline it to what is applicable to our context in Nigeria, for instance, could be a challenge. Basically, especially for probably students who wants to take a course and all of that, and proceed into the academic and all of that, and also even career paths that are much more much more much more clear and what you're familiar with in the African context and all of that. So what we have done right now as a company is that we have taken out research, and we have also created a scientific and psychology proven career congruence personality product that helps you to connect, to understand your values, to understand your strengths and weaknesses, and then understand which or what career path or courses of study that works well for your personality. And this is actually something that has really taken a level of intentionality, and we're proud to say and happy to actually inform you, and this, you guys will be the first that will be hearing this. So I'm happy to say that we have really made progress with this particular product, and we're going to be launching the product next year, January. Okay, so I want you guys to stay glued to the community and expect the big announcement. It will really be something of great help, but especially for people, for you, if you are looking for clarity of the path you want to actually transition into. Either you're a student that is transitioning into the workforce, or you're a professional already who wants to probably dive into a deeper niche. When you want to streamline to a niche in your career path, or you want to actually probably even pivot from one career to another career, and you're looking for answers. So it's something you find very, very useful. So, and it's going to be coming to you January next year, 2025, and it's something great that we are really we are really glad to actually share with the entire world. So, and that's number two. And for a few months in the year 2024, we have actually run through a series of master classes, and you probably, as a person, and even extend to your network, you will benefit from wants to improve their productivity, wants to improve their professional skills, and in different in different industries. And you get more on this as you stay on the community, and probably see one or two major things that can really be of help to you as a person if you are in a professional space already. And yeah, so it's going to be, to round up on this, is going to be that this is December 2024, is the end of the year. And it's been a long year, actually. And for some, that might have been short, and all of that. But we are actually heavy on impact. Okay, we are people driven to help, and the goal of our company overall is to actually help improve African human capital. Okay, to help solve the issue of low human capital in Africa by improving cognitive and productive skills, and also helping you to achieve career satisfaction. And that has driven us into a lot of impact-driven product and features and all of that. So we are very, very keen to helping our society, and that's one of the reasons why we're going to be doing this webinar. For instance, this free, totally free, and all our webinars are totally free. And we are also this December we are running a 50% discount on all courses, and this is huge. For the team to decide this, it is actually huge. Okay, our courses, if you go check our website, you see them there, but we're running a 50% discount for December alone, and it's a very short window. It's starting on the window. The wait list actually closes today. Okay, so 24th. If you have been on the community before this webinar, you'd have seen that. Or if you have also checked us out on social media, you'd have seen the campaign. But the waitlist closes today, and the window for sales is going to be very short, probably around the marketing team will decide that they want to extend it or not, probably 48 hours or something. So for all our courses, so it's huge. If you're interested in this, you will get more information on the community. You should sign up. I really encourage you to sign up. We have courses that works for across different industries. For instance, we have creative writing. You want to improve your skill to write more, write well. You want to we have a skill. We have courses on advanced retention. We want to retain more. We have courses on critical thinking. We have courses on out of memory, basic memory retention course. We have courses on research writing and all of that. So you may want to actually check the list out. It's just the community manager is going to drop the link to join the waitlist. You're going to see all the courses there and all that. We're not going to bog the community with all of that. So if you are interested, you can just check through the content and follow the link to that specific WhatsApp group, and you're going to see all of that there. So it's a big one for us to actually pull that off for this December. But I'm saying that it's worth it, because we want to actually see that you be your best self for 2025. So wait for that and watch out for that. So yeah, this is actually where I'm going to post, and it's actually amazing having you all on the call. We were hoping for more people actually to be on the call today, but I guess there are maybe few things, one or two things that have affected the participation. But as we promised on the group, there's going to be a recording for replay for people who couldn't join us, and then it's going to be posted on our YouTube channel. You guys will be able to see it. So if you are also on the call and you feel like, oh, I want to immerse myself more in what Dr. Chris actually shared, the insights and all of that, you would actually have access to that. And all other conversations we continue in the community. So stay glued to the community and stay engaged. And that will be all for me here. So yeah, Titilayomi, thank you for hosting this amazing session, and thank you once again, Dr. Chris. So yeah, Titi, over to you.
All right, so we've come to the end of this life transforming webinar. Again, we want to thank everyone for joining in, everyone, our audience. Thank you for joining and staying up to this time. Really, you are the real MVP, like they say. And again, thank you, Dr. Chris, for your time and sharing your wealth of knowledge with us. We are super grateful for that. All right, so I think that'll be all for today. Bye, everyone. See you next time, right?
Yeah, see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.